My name is Dr. Carol Bond, and I am the event coordinator for today's festivities. Of course, I did not do this on my own. I have a major thanks to a very vast army of volunteers through Rotary, and with the exceptional efforts of Joe Mavros, who is our office manager. So welcome, so give Joe a round of applause. So as we begin this World Environment Day with this Food Waste and Environment Luncheon, we would like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the country on which we meet. We pay our respects to the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, on whose unceded country we conduct our business and live our lives. One thing I'd like to point out to you as we pay respects to their elders past, present, and emerging and pledge to work together with them on the journey of reconciliation is although today may be the beginning of winter according to the Australian calendar, according to the Kulin Nations people's calendar, this is wearing season. This is the season of wombats. Okay, we have entered wombat season, and you can see that the Eastern Kulin Nations have a calendar that has 6 seasons, which is based on the various plant and animal life that is either fruiting or flowering or being born. So I highly recommend that you do a little bit of exploration of the country on which we reside and start to understand that the traditional custodians color the seasons by by the wildlife and the flora that's here. So I'd like to ask you to join me in a loyal toast to Rotary International, and World Environment Day. Hear, hear. All right. So the order of proceedings today is that we will have a welcome by the President of the Rotary Club of Melbourne, Reg Smith, and then we are going to have the very exciting presentation of the Environmental Sustainability Awards. Following that, we will have our lunch and then have a panel of distinguished guests who will be with us to discuss the impact of food waste on the environment. And I think I'd like to hand over now to President Reg to welcome everybody and introduce our panelists. And I'm looking for Reg at the moment, and I don't see, there he is. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's an absolute joy to have so many people in the room. For those who don't know me, my name is Reg Smith, and I am the President of Rotary Melbourne. And this is actually an official Rotary meeting, but I hope it won't feel like that for too long. We welcome you to our 4,939th meeting in our 101-year history, and our first World Environment Day lunch, which is why we're all here. A very special welcome is extended to our distinguished guests who will form our panel. We have Professor John Thwaites, AM, Lord Mayor Sally Capp, Matt Preston, known to us all, Abiola Ajetomobi, and Steve Clifford. They're going to be more formally introduced shortly. Unfortunately, last night, Dr. Sandro Demaio advised that he cannot be here today due to COVID. We all wish him a speedy recovery. Each of these guests will be introduced formally shortly. In the meantime, please acknowledge and make our special guests welcome. Okay. I'll just do one little formality and then we'll restart after that, and that is to essentially say to you, you will be hearing a little later today that this lunch is focused on food waste and supports SecondBite to rescue and distribute food. I'd like to acknowledge the SecondBite founders, Simone and Ian Carson. We're about to be served lunch, and hence a little shift in our running sheet. But our menu has been a collaboration designed by SecondBite ambassador, the well-known Matt Preston, to strive for minimal food waste, and it's been superbly executed, I'm sure you'll agree, by the Sofitel team of chefs. We specifically thank Clive Scott, the General Manager of the Sofitel on Collins, and his Sofitel team. Thank you. Please join me. We did have some awards scheduled for now, but it's time we get on with the dinner service, so I'll be back in a few minutes when I'm instructed to. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy. In our centenary year, Rotary Melbourne established an Environmental Sustainability Award. This was in response to the newly endorsed 7th area of focus, supporting the environment, which was adopted universally by Rotary International. The award is administered by a committee whose purpose is to ensure the club develops environmentally sustainable practices and identifies projects which include volunteer activities specifically in the area of the environment. Today, we will be awarding the 2nd Rotary Melbourne Environmental Sustainability Award. And I call on the inaugural winner now, Claire Moore, from Sweet Justice, to come and tell us a little bit about the impact of the award on her life and business. Claire, I know you're out there somewhere. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land we meet upon today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. I also acknowledge the Dja Dja Wurrung people whose land I live on. I pay respects to their elders past and present. As a beekeeper, I understand the importance of caring for our forests, and I pay my respects to those who've cared for country and continue to protect the land and all who depend on it. I also extend my greetings to our honoured guest here today, Lord Mayor Sally Capp and Professor John Thwaites. And my warm greetings and thanks for inviting me here today to Rotary President Reg Smith. Thank you. Ooh, bear with me. Winning this award has meant the world to Sweet Justice. This recognition came at a time when we were in the depths of COVID and in lockdown. So it was hard to get a sense of how much we were achieving with Sweet Justice. But more than the award itself, it's been the connections that we've made with Rotary that has been the game changer for Sweet Justice in our business. Firstly, Peter Berg has been a wonderful support and has been my go-to guy at Rotary and has given me a lot of advice when I've needed it. There's no one he doesn't know, so thank you, Peter. Secondly, John Maskell and the Rotarians for Bees. Their commitment to bees is just wonderful. And bear with me, I'm working off an iPad. It's slowly changing. Your group has been inspiring and absolutely heartwarming. I've been to quite a few of your Rotary events about bees. If you get a chance, go. They're fabulous. And finally, my deepest gratitude to your former president and my friend and mentor, Quinn Scalzo. Quinn is one of the nicest and most generous people you'll ever meet. His support for Sweet Justice has transformed the possibilities of what we as an organisation can do. My ambitions for what we might be able to achieve in 5 years for Sweet Justice have now been whittled down to 12 months with his great support. So thank you, Quinn. I'm genuinely excited to be here today to meet this year's winner, and I'm sure they will appreciate the value and the opportunity just as much as I did. Congratulations. Thank you.
Claire. thank you, Claire. And Claire's staying with me because I think she's agreed to help us with a special presentation. Would Manon Beauchamp-Tardieu please come and join us on the stage? While she's coming up, I'm going to read a citation. For this year, the committee felt that there was another candidate whose environmental work also deserves special recognition and awards a commendation award recognising the distinguished service of Manon Beauchamp-Tardieu. She's the founder and managing director of the Little Green Panda towards Rotary International's 7th area of focus that you've heard about. Through this award, Rotary Melbourne recognises and applauds Manon's willingness to put service above self, with her important focus on creating and designing products and eliminate environmentally unfriendly single-use plastics that cause immense harm to the world's oceans and waterways, and also generate toxic greenhouse gases when sent to landfill. Can I please present this to Manon?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Manon, would you like to give us a brief insight as to your work? Thank you.
Thank you, Reg. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. This is really a true honour. I put together a little note, so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we have been gathered on today, and I'm truly honoured to be here with you all. Firstly, I'm very overwhelmed and with gratitude to have been selected to receive the Rotary Melbourne's Environmental Sustainability Commendation Award. It's pretty surreal to feel to be up here today. So thank you all so much for being here to share this moment with me. I'm honoured to have my work recognised this way by the Rotary Club of Melbourne. So for the past 3 years, I've been doing Little Green Panda as a side hustle, and it really grew to be something much bigger than I ever expected it to be. And I think it's because now more than ever, we need to create the change that we want to see in the world. And I guess I sort of started this side hustle, which has now become a business, because I never understood why something that's used once is engineered to last for centuries. Just didn't make much sense to me. So Little Green Panda was founded on the belief that single-use products shouldn't be made to last. And I remember when I heard for the first time that 8 million tons of plastic are dumped into our oceans every year. To put that into perspective for you, that equals to around 4 million Jeeps just floating around in the ocean, which seems pretty crazy. So it's to no surprise that plastic pollution is a serious threat to our planet. Although this award is titled to myself, I want to say that this wasn't earned on my own. I'm so thankful for my co-founders, Loris Campanile, Darin Denjoubi, and Anthony Hodgson to help me reach a stage where I can proudly hold up this award as a symbol of what we've achieved. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Manon. And now to our 21-22 Environmental Sustainability Award. To help with the presentation of the award, we're honoured to have Professor John Thwaites AM with us today. John is a professional fellow at the Monash University and chair of the Monash Sustainability Development Institute and Climate Works Australia. John was Deputy Premier of Victoria from 1999 until his retirement in 2007. During this period, he held various ministerial portfolios, including health, planning, environment, water, and was Victoria's first Minister for Climate Change. In these portfolios, he was responsible for major reforms in social policy, health, environment and water. John is chair of the National Sustainability Development Council, which has developed the Transforming Australia the Transforming Australia framework. The STG Progress Report for 2018 was his first accomplishment. He is a co-chair of the Leadership Council of the UN Sustainability Development Solutions Network, and which was launched by the Secretary-General of the United Nations to provide expert advice and support and development implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. In January 2021, John was made a member of the Order of Australia for significant service to the environment and to the people of and Parliament of Victoria. Now I'm just going to quickly read a brief citation for the awardee, and then I'll ask John to assist me in passing over the award. The Rotary Club of Melbourne Environmental Sustainability Award recognises the distinguished service of Phoebe Gardner and Alexander Arnold towards Rotary's 7th area of focus, supporting the environment. Through this award, Rotary Melbourne recognises and applauds Phoebe Gardner and Alexander Arnold's willingness to put service above self, and with their support, their important research work and establishment of a production facility that creates circular food systems using insects to reduce food waste. Phoebe and Alexander co-founded Bardee, starting with an idea in 2019 to reshape the global food system by transforming food waste into sustainable food ingredients. Bardee is doing this by growing and harvesting black soldier flies. The fly larvae consume food waste and convert it into all-natural protein and oil for pet food, poultry feed and nutrient-rich organic fertilisers. Its indoor breeding facility uses world-class technology. Bardee's innovative process reduces food scraps in landfills, significantly lowers greenhouse gas emissions, produces products that aid the production of quality protein and makes agriculture more sustainable. Bardee is now the largest insect breeding, fertiliser and protein producer in Australia, processing up to 10 tonnes of food waste every 8 hours, 6 days a week. Every tonne of protein produced offsets 100 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent to plant, and it's the equivalent of planting 1,600 trees. Phoebe and Alexander are social entrepreneurs committed to the expansion of a global circular economy technology. A next step will be to move from the pet food industry into stock feed, and more adventurously later on, the future goal is to achieve food for human consumption using the same technology. Now, I believe there's been a little logistics problem in our awardees getting here, so I'm going to invite our co-committee chair, Peter Berg, to take custody of the award from John. Just add a point or two that I might have missed, and we'll move on. Okay, so I think we're now scheduled to break for dessert, and we'll be back on the platform with the panel discussion that I think everyone's waiting expectantly to hear shortly. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy. I'm delighted now to call on Professor John Thwaites, who's going to be running the panel conversation, to come to the podium and get things underway. Thanks, John. Please welcome John.
Well, thank you very much, Reg, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where we are, the people of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Thank you, Rotary, and to the City of Melbourne and to the Sofitel Melbourne for hosting today's first annual World Environment Day luncheon. And today we're going to be benefiting the fantastic non-profit charity SecondBite. And you're going to hear more about SecondBite later in this session. I should just mention, Reg, congratulations on your year as president. Reg and I first met each other a few years ago. I won't say exactly when, but I was a young Australian exchange student on a plane to America with, I think, about 120 other 17 and 18-year-olds. What? About that. And Reg was our chaperone. What happened on the plane stays on the plane. But unfortunately, a couple of the students actually didn't stay on the plane. They went off and got lost on the way home. But anyway, that's another story. But we're here because it's World Environment Day. And World Environment Day is actually this Sunday, but Rotary and the City of Melbourne and the Sofitel are hosting this event to acknowledge World Environment Day. And particularly we're focusing on food and how we can responsibly feed people. We all love food. We know how important it is. Unfortunately, the production of food around the world is leading to massive environmental degradation. At the same time, we have 800 million people in the world don't have enough food. 30% of all the food that is produced is wasted. And yet, as I say, nearly 1 billion people don't have enough food. And all of that not only hurts the environment, of course, it makes it much more difficult to meet climate change targets because food production and food waste actually contributes 8% of global emissions. So in order to highlight what we can do positively about food waste, we've got a great panel today. And we're going to hear from them about some of the initiatives that their organisations are taking around food and sustainable food. But I should emphasise first that the food that we're eating today at the Sofitel has been designed to be sustainable, and Matt Preston, the famous food writer, amongst other things, has designed the menu to be sustainable, and we're going to hear more from Matt today. We're also going to hear about how the carbon emissions from today's event are going to be offset, and Andrew Marr from With One Seed is going to mention that. And Andrew has established the most amazing organisation working with Timor-Leste and farmers in Timor-Leste to offset carbon emissions, and today's emissions are being offset by that, and Andrew will talk about that. As Reg said, I chair an organisation called Climate Works, which used to be called Climate Works Australia, but we're now Climate Works Centre because we're now working not just in Australia, we're working in Indonesia, the region and the Pacific. And one of our big challenges is how we can work with other countries to develop a much more sustainable food system. Part of it is about food waste, and that's what we're going to focus on today. But it's also about the way we produce food. And we're working with farmers here, but also in other countries, to develop more sustainable food production techniques. And we're actually designing a natural capital measurement tool that farmers can use to show the impact of their farm on a whole range of different environmental measures, such as biodiversity, nitrogen, phosphorus, water and carbon emissions. And interestingly, we haven't really had that before, a tool that farmers could use to satisfy investors, to satisfy finances, and very importantly, to satisfy you, the consumers, that the food you're getting is as sustainable as possible. Now, can I ask our panel to come up? And we've got a fabulous panel, and we'll be hearing from them. So I'll get... And what we're going to do, just as the panel is sitting down, we're going to hear from each of the panel members for just a couple of minutes. A few of them have got slides and they'll show them. And then we're going to have a bit of a conversation around food and sustainable food. And I think I might, I will start at the top with Sally Capp, the Lord Mayor. Sally Capp is the first woman to be directly elected Lord Mayor of Melbourne. And she's been in the role since 2018, through a pretty tough period, I might say, but done a great job. Aside from her well-known passion to really reinvigorate the city after COVID, Sally is committed to ensuring Melbourne remains a global leader in environmental sustainability. And I know that the City of Melbourne was the first Australian city to sign up to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Well done. And has a strategic focus on tackling food waste and food security. So Sally, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, John. Hello to all of our Rotary Melbourne members. Thank you so much for coming today. I say thank you to Reg and the team for organising this event. We are on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. We acknowledge elders past and present, but also that we have much to learn from our traditional owners around food and food waste, and look forward to more of those ongoing conversations. It is an honour to be here as well. I wanted to say thanks to Matt for designing that menu. Can I please note right now, Clive as well, that there's no waste at my plate today. It was delicious and very conscientious in making sure that, that we lived up to the theme for today. We at the City of Melbourne, we are in many ways demonstrating leadership on climate action and sustainability. It's absolutely critical for us. I acknowledge that there are a team of City of Melbourne people here today who do brilliant work and are very dedicated, and I'm reflecting their work in my words today. Well, at the City of Melbourne, as many of you know from my previous presentations, we declared a climate and biodiversity emergency in 2019. And we've set ambitious goals to be a city, not just an organisation, but a city that is powered 100% by renewable energy by 2030 and have zero net carbon emissions by 2040. These are ambitious goals. And we know that reducing food waste is going to really help us towards achieving those goals for our city and community. I'm looking down because we've got some fantastic stats here. The first one is that at the City of Melbourne, about 40% of our residential waste is food and organics waste. We know also that for us to make big inroads, we have to set some targets. And so we've decided to cut that food waste in half and work with our community to achieve that. To do that, we've launched a food and organics waste collection service, and we've been delighted at the uptake. 23,000 households now using the food and organics waste service, and that's meant that we've diverted 1,165 tonnes of food waste away from landfill. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. To reach our target, though, we need to get to 2,500 tonnes of food waste. So we're well on our way, but still a way to go. And all of you, in the way that you thoughtfully use food and then what you do with the food waste, can help us achieve those goals. The next part of that is, what do we do with that food waste? Well, we're doing a trial where we're turning it into compost and putting it on our parks and gardens, and we're starting in Kensington. If you're a Kensington resident, really enjoy that compost around our plants and gardens because it's been well utilised from our food waste. Our biggest challenge is to move into high-rise. This is a challenge around the world. 84% of our population live in a high-rise. We've just started with low-rise, high-rise, if that makes sense, and starting trials on how we can collect their food and organic waste more effectively. and we're looking forward to delivering on new methodologies to make that work. We're also very conscious of food relief and ways that other organisations and our efforts can combine. So we're talking to Queen Victoria Market traders about how we can more effectively collect their waste, their food waste, and work with organisations like SecondBite. And Ian and Simone Carson, I recognise you today, 2018 Melburnians of the Year and absolute leaders in this field. Thank you so much. So that we can redirect edible food into much better uses, particularly providing food relief and security for local populations. There are lots of other levers we can pull to guarantee ourselves a healthier future. I hope we get a chance to talk about them. Renewable energy initiatives, circular economy, different transport options, more of which can be revealed in the panel discussion. John, thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Lord Mayor Sally Capp. I'd now like to call on Matt Preston, who's a SecondBite ambassador, food writer, radio and TV presenter. He is a senior editor for Delicious and Taste magazines. He contributes to one of the world's best read recipe websites, www.taste.
That's enough, John.
With a monthly reach of 2 million food lovers. All right, I'll let you go.
Thank you, John. Okay, I come at waste from Sally's beautifully concise, so I'll be a lot less concise. I come at food waste from two positions. I come in a position of being a food writer, writing about how you can minimise waste at home, and then I come about it from being on the board at SecondBite, about how we can actually make really big inroads into waste. Let's start about home. When you walk in with 3 bags of shopping, you're going to throw one of those away, okay? So minimising food waste starts very, very simply. It doesn't start with a compost bin. It starts by buying less, number 1. Buy what you need, so that's number 1. Number 2, and this is where I have to pay huge respect to Clive's team here at the Sofitel. When they said design the menu, I rang up the chef's name with it, and I said, you've had some thoughts? And yeah, we're going to do this. And they gave me about 2.5 pages of notes on why everything here is sustainable. So all the ingredients are local, number 1. So that's really important, minimising environmental impact. The crumble you've just had, the oat milk that made the custard was made with the oats that was on top of the crumble. So those oats were then recycled. The whole of the chicken was used, all parts of the chicken. That's why we started with a parfait, and your chicken was your main course. So they've done an amazing job in making sure that this menu is local and also as sustainable as possible. So big round of applause for the guys at Sandro. It's the best sort of menu design is when someone else does it, has to be said. The problem, though, with minimising waste at home is that I don't think there's a single person here who's going to go home and make their own oat milk, because it's a pain to do, and it's hard, and it takes time. Although it's a little step, and these little steps all matter in terms of minimising waste. My involvement in SecondBite, which goes back 10 years, has been because I see it as a way that we can eat the elephant, not in little tiny bites, but in huge, great gulps at a time. So to give you an idea, last financial year, SecondBite picked up almost 25 million kilos of fresh, recyclable, reusable food. 25 million kilos of food. It's a phenomenal job. And this starts from Ian and Simone with their little, it's such a Melbourne story, with their little station wagon going to Pran Market and picking up, a box of veg here and recycling it. But more importantly than that, it's always said that we don't have a food shortage. We've got more than enough food to feed everyone. We have a distribution problem. And what SecondBite does brilliantly is collecting that fresh, nutritious produce and then recycling it to 1,400 partners around Australia, because SecondBite's a national organisation. And they will go into food packs for homeless people, for refugees, for organisations like Sacred Heart and their lunch programme, making all those programmes sustainable. All that produce is given away for free. There's no charge to the charity. So when you're looking in Australia at 6 million people who this year will suffer from food insecurity, and that number will rise with cost of living going up and with interest rates going up. We need this more than ever. I'm now going to sledge my dear friend Steve Clifford on my left. Here's the CEO of SecondBite. There's a problem that SecondBite has. It's a real Melbourne problem. Here is this organisation. It's a world best organisation at collecting and redistributing food from farm gates, from stores. But being very Melbourne, we tend to not talk about it very much. We don't talk about what an amazing job is being done by this organisation that was formed here, based here. So I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Listen to Steve. Listen to the amazing work that SecondBite's doing all over Australia, and realise that we can double that 25 million kilos with the right support. And rather than donate, we'd love you to donate, I'd love you to donate, but go and tell your network and tell your friends what an amazing job SecondBite is doing, because that's how we move SecondBite out from those shadows and to actually start getting the funding it deserves from local, state and federal government in order to do the job it does so very well. It is the most effective of these organisations. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Matt. And now we've got an opportunity to hear a bit more from the CEO of SecondBite, Steve Clifford, who is passionate about helping people and improving opportunities in life. But Steve, I think you've been given the challenge by Matt. Let's hear more about what you do.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Matt, for the warm-up. I think it's fair to say we do hide our light under a bushel, pun intended, at SecondBite, and that's something we're definitely trying to change at the moment. If I can briefly just touch base on the Rotary connection, though, for me, it's really special to be here with Rotary Melbourne because my father died 30 years ago, but he was a Rotarian. He was at Camberwell Rotary, and he was a founding member of North Bull and Probus, and his attitude was, of course, you serve above yourself. So John and I know each other from 30 years, and I was in the law for 30 years. I think you bailed a little bit earlier than me. But the last 10 years I've been involved in the not-for-profit world, and it's such a privilege to be leading SecondBite. Unfortunately, my stats are not as good as yours, Sally Capp. The stats that I'd tell you about is that 1 in 5 Australians suffer from food insecurity. That means that in 2022 in Australia, there are 1 in 5, 20%, who cannot get affordable, quality, nutritious, culturally appropriate food. And that's an absolute tragedy. That's why we're here, and I think that's probably why many of you are here to change that. At the same time, as we've got that need, you heard from Matt, 25 million kilograms of food we rescued last year. That would have gone straight into landfill. So when you hear SecondBite's logo, ending waste, ending hunger, you can see what a wonderful idea that Ian and Simone Carson had 16 years ago at Paran Market to take food that was otherwise going to waste, going to landfill, causing carbon emissions, and instead giving it to hungry Australians. And the other happy connection here is that Rotary Melbourne was involved virtually at the start. I think from year 2, Bob Glidderman and the Rotary team were there, and you're still there supporting us today. So we really appreciate it. I wonder if you could give yourselves a clap, Rotary Melbourne, for all the support you've given us since inception. It's a great example that SecondBite loves to work with organisations, large, small, anyone that can help us with our mission. So I think it's a wonderful connection with Rotary Melbourne. We've now grown from those early days when Rotary Melbourne was working with the Carsons and a handful of people. 25 million kilos, that's a lot of food to move. And how do we do that? We do that because we now have 5 warehouses around the country. As Matt said, we're a national organisation, started in little old Melbourne. We have, I've got about 90 staff working with me, and we've got 40 trucks and vans with the SecondBite logo. And we also have a number of those community organisations that Matt says who also will collect food and deliver it. And the food we collect that otherwise would go to landfill is given free to every one of those community organisations who then pass it on to the people who need it the most. So it's a wonderful model, and we are by far the unrivalled, most efficient food rescue organisation in the country. For every $1 you invest in us, I'm going to finish up by asking if you might like to invest $1 or $2 in us. For every $1 you invest in us, we can provide 5 meals. to hungry Australians. And the reason we can do that is because the food that we get is donated by generous food donors around the country, from retailers like Coles and factories and manufacturers. So we love the way that works. So perhaps to just wind up my couple of minutes, 3 ways you can help us, and Matt did touch on these. Firstly, please donate. You know, a tax-deductible donation to SecondBite just helps us get on with the mission that we're trying to achieve. Secondly, spread the word. It's a great story. I mean, most people don't know about us as well as they should, and it is such a great word. So please tell people about us. They may want to donate. And thirdly, I'm talking to a corporate group. So we have a lot of corporate partners and we can never have enough. So there might be someone you can introduce us to who might have some sort of in-kind support or funding possibilities. That's a third way that we would really appreciate your help. And then by doing that, you can help us in our mission to end waste and end hunger. And if I make, just quickly before I finish up, thank you to Clive and the team and Carol for giving SecondBite this amazing support of the lunch today. We really appreciate it. And finally, thank you to all of you for coming along and supporting SecondBite. Thank you.
And finally, we're really fortunate to be able to hear from Abiola Ajetomobi. And Abiola is the key liaison officer for United African Farm. And that is a community-based initiative which is founded and run by members who are of African descent. And we're going to hear more about this from Abiola.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity to speak here today. Such an important day, not only in Australia, but the rest of the world. I'm from Africa by appearance, and also by birth. But United African Farm started in 2019, born out of an initiative by 2 older African women that went to a conference about farming, and they wanted to see how they could grow their own produce and live off that, and also share that with the rest of the community. One by one, a couple of people joined them, but I came to join end of 2020 when they were going through some troubles because some of them were not inclined with the Australian system of governance and structures, and they were being exploited and taken advantage of, and the farm they had at the time had to close down. So someone approached me. I work for the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre about helping out at the time. So I was fortunate to be on board and see the intentionality of the women and their deep interest in farming. For people that have been fortunate to have been to Africa or live or work there or even heard of Africa, you know, agriculture is a key part of our community. We see the culture in agriculture, and we use those to kind of infuse culture into this Australian system as well. What we focus on mainly is food sovereignty, because we believe that human rights to food is basically because people have opportunity to control the system. So being able to grow food by the community, for the community, to the community and the public was really important to us. So we started reviving the team and also bringing that together. So currently we're a membership of 80 community members, about 26 countries of the 54 African nations represented there. And with that, our common language is English, because most of us don't even speak each other's language. But what's really important and essential there is our interest, not only in growing food, but also eating healthy and ensuring that people have access to healthy food, affordable, and also free if they are participating in the farm. So we run a membership model that comprises of 3 areas. One is that people pay membership, and with that they can be part of volunteering on the farm, they have access to the produce, and also can share the produce with their community. The other membership are people from non-Africa background that are interested in farming that comes to join us as well, and they have access to the produce, also can support us with other volunteering capacity. And the third one is honorary membership, mainly for our grantors and other key donors as well. The farm was given to us a 3-acre farmland and was given to us on an impact investment model. So it's a generous community member that gave us the farm on 3 acres. So what I mean by impact investment is that the long-term equity on the farm belongs to the family, but the short term is for the community good, which is why we are on the farm. And since we've started the farm I think we started back in February 2022 has been really going off. It's been incredible to see the generosity of the public, the community, but also the spirit of oneness that we cultivate and create in that space is magical. You should go on Facebook and see some of our videos and see the older women relating to the younger women, and also we're working with local schools as well to try and bring that, bridge that gap and also bring that cultural knowledge and heritage into the space. But our intention and our long-term mission is that we not only create an African farm, we want to create a United Nations hub. So whereby it's all communities, all communities, all nationalities, multifaceted, that are coming together, not only to grow, but to share, and the heritage and the food and all of that. But I think more importantly, on a day like this, it's essential for me to say, when it comes to environmental friendly communities, and also being aware of the World Environmental Day. In Africa, everything we see means a lot to us, whether it's plants, whether it's insects, whether it's trees, everything can be traced to medicinal, to food, to survival, basically. So being part of the environment and being aware of the environment and ensuring that we keep the environment safe and healthy for everyone is really important to us. And part of that survival is that we have access to food, not only to ourselves, but to people around us. And I think that's one of the things that we're able to achieve in the United African Farm. I can talk more to it during the panel session. Thank you.
Now I'm going to sit down and join the panel and start with a few questions. And I'd like to start by asking Sally, you mentioned that the City of Melbourne was, I think, the first in the world, certainly in Australia, not only to commit to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, but also to create a voluntary local review about how we're performing. Can you tell us a bit about that and what else the City of Melbourne is doing to tackle climate change?
Thanks, John. Well, the Sustainable Development Goals are really important, 17 of them, and in adopting them, we didn't want to just be all talk and no action. So the best thing we could do was sign up for a voluntary local review. We're the first city in Australia to do that, and that means we're going to be measured against those 17 goals each year, which then, of course, what gets measured gets managed, means that we're going to action those in everything that we do. So the SDGs have been mapped out across our organisation, across every branch of activity, every policy and strategy, every outcome we're delivering. And we now have a benchmark, which was an enormous amount of work for our team to set up those benchmarks. And from that, we'll be able to measure our performance. Importantly, it's also almost a language internationally for us to be able to share our progress and the things that have worked well, but learn from others on how we can improve. And this is the network of knowledge that is set up through the SDG program, something we're very dedicated to. Across those 17 goals, many of them are food related, or number 2, of course, zero hunger, which we're dedicated to, and happy to talk more about that. But just on some of the other climate initiatives, and we have many. One of the newest ones is called Power Melbourne. Again, first time a city is doing this in Australia. It's an independent network of community scale batteries to really promote demand of renewable energy and also the generation of renewable energy, and hurtle us like the elephant towards that 2030 target of having a city that is powered 100% by renewable energy. We've got to this point because our organisation at the moment uses 100% renewable energy as a result of an earlier program, imaginatively called the Melbourne Renewable Energy Program. And we were able to work with big energy users to enter a power purchasing agreement. John, you know all about this, to establish wind farms in northern Victoria. But from that, which has significantly reduced our emissions, we had so many inquiries, particularly from residents and small business owners, saying, we're not big energy users, but we want to be involved in the solution here, so how do we do it? So the Community Scale Batteries project called Power Melbourne is the best way that we can really embrace everybody in this big challenge to move towards 100% renewable energy.
Great. Well, that's a big agenda. If I could ask Matt and Steve to give us an idea of what has been the impact, do you think, of the COVID pandemic on food and food waste, both from a SecondBite perspective, but also from a household perspective? Maybe Steve and then Matt.
Okay, just to start, I think a couple of things have changed. Firstly, we've noticed that the cohort of people who go to our agencies around the country has changed. Unfortunately, it's grown. So instead of just the traditional types of people you think who are poor, who are homeless, those sort of common issues, we're starting to see new cohorts, pensioners who are struggling with growing cost of living post-COVID and during COVID, young tradies even with families coming in and queuing up for food at some of our agencies. Surprising changes like that. So that's the first thing. The cohort has grown. There's more people in need as a result of COVID. And of course, we're in Queensland and northern New South Wales as well, John. So you add the floods on top of that and the demand's never been higher. That's the demand side. Of course, on the supply side during COVID, the supply chains have been disrupted. In our own supermarkets, and none of us, I don't think, are disadvantaged in the way I'm talking about. In our own supermarkets, there's been problems getting food on the shelves. So we're waiting at the back of the supermarkets with our SecondBite vans to get food. So there's not much getting to them. So we have the same issues in relation to getting supply to our needy clients. The problem has been helped to a large extent by some generous supporters we've had. The government's provided some funding and Coles as well. So that would be sort of from an operational point of view how I'd respond.
I think the SecondBite, we have those 1,400 charities. Their demands all went up, but also there are other specific demands that happen. So international students was a good example. So we're very much a partner organisation. So we looked at Fair Share, and we worked with Fair Share to make sure that we could put out 120,000 meals to international students who weren't being supported by anything else. There's no government support. They were here. They were at the universities. They needed to be fed. They had no money. So we did that. So it's that sort of stuff which goes to the floods, to the bushfires. So there's stuff where you just need to get food. You just need to get food into a place because no one's eating. And having had some experience in terms of those southern New South Wales fires, there were people who didn't see people for 2 days, didn't have any access for food for 2 days. So anything that we can do to support those organisations that are out there supplying food to make it easier for them and cheaper for them, that's what we do. So, I think that's just those opportunities keep arising, sadly, and they will continue to keep arising. COVID is one, the current economic situation is going to be another, and there'll be another one, and there'll be another one, and that's why an organisation like SecondBite is so important, because it provides a bit of a safety net.
Oh, look, I was just going to jump in and say, pre-COVID, in surveying our population, there were 1 in 5 said they were experiencing food insecurity. We surveyed again last year, and it's now 1 in 3. And so it really goes to that sense of this is a growing issue. During COVID, we established a program for international students, and we had 2,000 vouchers of $200 to use to buy food, and we ended up 10,000 people turned up. We had lines around Town Hall, and so we worked with the state government to do 10,000 vouchers. This just gives you a sense, and we need to humanise this because we are talking numbers, but just to see young families in the line, people that had felt completely abandoned, and food insecurity impacts people that you don't imagine. We can't generalise either. So to Steve's point about the different cohorts coming, it's very true. It's growing.
The other comment I was going to make, Sally, is there's a question of equity here. I used to be a lawyer, and it's inequitable that some people struggle to get a decent feed and the rest of us don't. So I think COVID highlighted that. We had the towers in North Melbourne, those sort of issues where it just shows that we need to get an equitable food system. And I think what Melbourne is doing is sort of leading the field in many ways here, and we'd love to support that too.
And I think it really highlights the importance of having an organisation like SecondBite that is there to provide support in these disasters. I mean, what would have happened if you weren't, and the other organisations you talk about?
There's still so much more we can do, John. You know, there's a great organisation run by a guy called Jose Andres, called the World Central Kitchen, World Global Kitchen. And remember when the COVID hit the liner in Oakland, and everyone was locked down on that liner, and they turned up and set up kitchens and fed those people. They turned up at the border at Haiti and fed those people. They turned up in Bermagui and fed 60,000 people over 10 days. And we kind of need, that's coming out of the US, we kind of need that sort of ability to respond here as well. So, but these again, you know, you're sitting there going, it's such a massive problem that the first thing is picking up, you know, those truckloads of food that's coming out the back of Coles, or coming out to the 11,000 kilos of apples that we need to get somewhere. But then there's also that long-term stuff about how do we react fluidly and flexibly to problems like that evolve, and how can we make that response better. The towers is a really good example, and you'd remember this. There was loads of food being delivered, but there were no chill rooms there. So the food was just going off. So it was like pointless. And then half the food was being delivered was not culturally appropriate. So we ended up working with the Asylum Resource Centre, didn't we, I think? In order to make sure that food is culturally appropriate. So all those things, all those learnings are things that go into that notebook about how can we make it better, how can we react better, how can we do what we do better. But gee, it's time, and we know that time is money.
And that, of course, is one of the real challenges of COVID. I think it also did put a spotlight on an opportunity, though, through COVID. I can say, and we were talking about this over lunch, in our household, our food waste went right down during COVID. And why is that? Because you planned your week's food. The normal way, probably many people buy their food, they go to the shop and get, we might need that, we might need this. During COVID, because you didn't really want to spend a lot of time in the shop, you planned fairly carefully. And I know in our household, we planned out, I did, because I do the cooking and I love cooking, we planned the week's food, and the food waste went right down. And
we made a lot of banana bread, an awful lot of banana bread.
Well, I did make my first Swedish buns that I'd ever made, and I was thinking when the Lord Mayor was talking about high rise, low rise, that was really a reflection of my cake that I tried. High rise was the intention, low rise was the outcome. But let's go on to another topic that's very relevant. Abiola raised, I think, the incredibly important issue of urban agriculture. And around the world, we're seeing a lot of communities really see the urban environment as an opportunity for agriculture. And I'm wondering, starting with Sally, whether the City of Melbourne see this as something that could be supported.
Absolutely. Our community gardens are some of the best spots around Melbourne, and I think we don't talk about them enough. And they can be little pockets, as we have at the back of Drill Hall, or they can be quite big, as we have down at Docklands. And it is about edible food. It's about learning how to grow it. It then brings some food security, but it's also about the sense of community. I think Abiola was really speaking to earlier that it's obviously food for the body, but it's actually solace for the mind and the emotions as well. And we see huge value in our community gardens, like our libraries, and we'll continue to invest in them.
And Abiola, are there some lessons that you've learnt from the urban farm that you think you could pass on, and maybe you could provide some advice to the Lord Mayor and her team?
Not sure if I can provide an advice, but I can share the lessons. I think, just something I forgot to mention as well in terms of food and zero waste. That's what we operate in the farm. Every produce gets to a table, a meal, a pot, and if it doesn't, then we put it back to the ground as a compost. And also we've started our own nursery as well to actually ensure that things are regrown as much as possible. But in terms of the lessons we've learned, especially when we had to close the first farm, one of the biggest lessons we learned was that the Australian community still lacks a lot of knowledge around diversity and inclusion, and how to play a role of active allies. Because I think when it comes to food sovereignty, food security, we need to understand that we're dealing with humans. And the dignity and the respect of those humans are as important as the food that you're passing to them. or giving to them. So there was a lot of lessons over that time, especially with our local council and how they responded to support us through that time, which we will be working with them on. And they've been very supportive in working through the change and seeing how to better work together. I think another lesson for us as well is the intergeneration nature of what we're trying to do. I think we are mostly in a society where people are, segregated based on age, class, status, and all of that. And what we were trying to do is to remove all of that and create a system of humans coming together and working together. So it was very hard for people to understand what we're trying to achieve and trying to connect us with, the famous and the influential Africans, unless this person is involved, And also the notion, I think it's a racist narrative that's, that's governance, good practice, good accountability, management relies with one community. And if you're dealing with multicultural or vulnerable communities, they don't have that skill. So it was very challenging to kind of change that narrative and create an understanding that we're actually leaders. All we need is active allies to work together. So I think that's another lesson through that time. In terms of what we learned through that process, is that I think the reality of being in a Western culture has never been as apparent until I got involved with the United African Farm and understand the structural barriers and the complexities. So being able to understand that better and find a way to always ensure that our common goal is to work together, and our common goal is to actually create an inclusive and a cohesive society rather than segregate ourselves. I think it's really a lesson for us and something that we continue to work on, because it can be quite overwhelming when you're dealing with the barriers that be and trying to also create a voice for your community in that space as well.
John, can I make a quick comment to picking up something Abiola said about food shaming? That's a really important thing, that the people we're serving, we don't want them to feel that they're any worse off than the rest of us. So part of the way we can deal with that is to make sure the quality of our food is good, but also the packaging. Matt mentioned Fair Share before. We give a lot of food to Fair Share that they then cook. It adds some use-by date to the food that otherwise would be going off. But the way that they package it is matching the best packaging you'll see in any Coles store or any upmarket supermarket. So I think that's an important part. And the other thing is we're trying to develop into the sort of 21st century organisation, cutting-edge organisation that SecondBite should be. And traditionally, over the last 16 years, we've basically had to take whatever food we've got. We get the food. We're a food rescue organisation by definition. That talks about the supply side. At the moment, well, as I sit here, we have funding for some really cutting-edge research going back to our agencies and saying, what food do your people need? We may not be able to tomorrow get exactly what you need, but we've never asked before. So what do you need? And we can then go upstream and see what supply we can get. Maybe we have to get someone to grow it for us. But to me, that's a really important next stage. We're not just giving to people who are saying, well, thanks for whatever you can give us. And it's part of a development of SecondBite where we're trying to be more data-driven. We're more technology in our vans. We're really moving into the future and looking after our clients respectfully. I think is a big part of that. Sorry, I'll cut you off.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're just about out of time, and we've heard about some great organisations, the United African Farm and, of course, SecondBite, and the great work that the City of Melbourne is doing. Would you now thank our great panel?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary Fowler, and I'm chair of the Rotary Melbourne's Environment Sustainability Committee. And it's my great pleasure, first of all, just to thank John and the outstanding panel on what a wonderful presentation. And our major objective in Rotary Melbourne and in the environment side is to create awareness and change behaviours. And what a wonderful insight we got into the whole question of food waste and the environment from this wonderful panel. And I'm sure it's going to influence us all to change our behaviours. And so thank you very much, John, and the panel for that. This lunch started formation almost a year ago when Clive Scott and Steve Clifford and Bob Glindeman and I and Chris Stillwell got together to say, can we put on an event like this and create, and with that objective, we've got a wonderful story to tell, and what a wonderful commitment we had from Clive at the Sofitel and SecondBite, and the City of Melbourne were involved as well, because they also said that's what their main objective is, to change behaviour. So that collaboration has resulted in this great event, and I'd just like to thank all involved in that, and also thank you for coming, because you're what it's all about. Now, we in Rotary Melbourne believe it's important to walk the talk. As Sally said, if we're going to be leaders in this movement, we've got to be able to demonstrate that we're serious about it. And the best way that we could find to do that is to ourselves achieve carbon neutrality, as has the City of Melbourne. And so I'm delighted to say that we have been able to do that, and I'll just very briefly tell you the process. We didn't want to go through all the efforts of paying for an audit, and so we decided, and we worked with ESRAG, and ESRAG's the worldwide group of Rotary for developing in the area of sustainability. We started with an international team that worked to put together a calculator, and also then with the help of an environmental consultancy. Now, I'm going to, for those of you that are interested, I'm actually going to be talking about the carbon calculator we've developed and how and what it measures and how it does so at our evening meeting next Wednesday, the 8th of June at 6 o'clock, and any and all of you that are interested are welcome to attend. It will be a hybrid meeting. But you'll be interested in some of the results. The emissions from the meal you had today actually worked out at 2.03 kilograms of CO2. To show that what we've learned is that this time last year we actually had our centenary lunch in celebration of our centenary, and the emissions from that lunch were 6 kilograms of CO2, and that was predominantly because our main course was beef. So it's all about learning these things, and that's why we've moved. As a matter of interest, I'm told by the actual calculation is that if we'd had our normal chicken-based lunch today, it would have been about 30% more in emissions than what we've actually had. So Sofitel's given us amazing support in helping us calculate this information, and it's very important that also demonstrates Sofitel's commitment in this area. Now, our emissions for last year, the year ended 21, were also calculated using this calculator, and and the emissions for that were actually 7 tons of CO2. And in the interests of becoming carbon neutral, we have actually purchased carbon credits to that effect. And we've got Andrew Marr, who's going to address you briefly in a moment, who basically has put together the organisation to which generates that credits. But the important message for us all is to understand that that money is just not going to some financier or something. That money that we generate will actually go to support a community that is actually working also to support the environment. So, and because of that, we now can claim carbon neutrality. So I'm going to ask Andrew to very briefly present us with our certificates, and also just to comment on what the With One Seed organisation does to generate these credits. Thank you.
Thank you. We've acknowledged the traditional owners on the land on which we're meeting. I'd also like to just acknowledge the Indigenous people of the world who contribute to looking after 80% of the world's biodiversity. And without that contribution, none of us would be here enjoying this meal today. Can I also just acknowledge Melbourne Rotary for the work that they've done in supporting the work that I've been doing in Timor-Leste for the past 18 years. And as in my role as Honorary Consul to Timor-Leste in Victoria, I'd also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Malbari people of Timor-Leste and their ancestors, many of whom now are growing trees that is sequestering the carbon that is allowing us to be able to, or allowing you to be able to offset this meal today. With One Seed started in 2010 after I read a book by Tim Flannery called Now or Never, and he was advocating that we ought to be encouraging subsistence farmers in the Asia-Pacific rainforest belt to maintain the forests that they were living in for two reasons. One is the forests provide their livelihoods, and the second is the more trees on the planet, the more carbon getting drawn down, the longer humanity might survive on the planet. The planet will survive, but whether we will survive with it is the big question. The With One Seed program is run high in the mountains in remote Timor-Leste. There are some 2,000 farmers who are maintaining new forests that they're planting, some 300,000 high-quality hardwood timber trees on their own land. And we work with those farmers. They get paid an annual incentive payment for looking after the trees. And this is one of the unique things about our forest programs, is that this is around looking after supporting smallholder communities. Over the past 10 years, we put just under $2 million into those communities from selling carbon credits. And the 7 carbon credits that I have absolute delight in presenting a certificate to you today. But how does this come out? A certificate that is co-signed by the new president of Timor-Leste, Jose Ramos Horta, who is also the patron of the With One Seed program. So I'm delighted to be able to give you that certificate. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, we're nearly at the end of our proceedings here today, and I'd like to call Peter Berg back up to the stage to help us draw the raffle, which all of the proceeds from the raffle go directly to SecondBite, which is our designated charity or beneficiary here today. Take your time. So the first prize is a bottle of Grange, a very nice bottle, I must say. And this is an orange ticket, if anybody has an orange ticket. It is C, and this is kind of funny. If you're a chemist, you're going to love this. It's CO2.
I tried awfully hard to get that one.
Does somebody have CO2 for the bottle of Grange? If that's your ticket, please find your way to the back corner to collect your prize. Yes? We need orange ticket, CO2 is the bottle of Grange. Okay, draw it again. If we don't have somebody for that one, we'll draw again. Oh, it's a shame. This one is a blue ticket. Still for the bottle of Grange. Let's see how we go. It's B05. All right, B05, the bottle of Grange is yours, sir. Our second prize is donated by the Sofitel. It is a night for two in this splendid facility. Again, a blue ticket, B01. Does that anybody claim B01? Going once? Going twice? We're going to draw again. We have an orange ticket, C60 for a night at the Is someone there? C60. You have the night at the Sofitel. Third prize is a delightful high tea for two at Chateau Yering. So it's an orange ticket. C81. C81 for high tea at Chateau Yering. All right. Good job, sir. Our fourth out of 5 prizes is a 2019 Battaglini Red Wild Fermented Shiraz, delightful and sustainably grown here in Victoria. It's an orange ticket, C61. C61 for the bottle of Shiraz. We have it? Yep, we've got another winner over here. Thank you very much, sir. And our fifth and final prize from the raffle is an orange ticket C82 for a Jekyll and Hyde Shiraz Viognier 2019 vintage. C82? C82 orange, we have one. Fantastic. Now there's two more prizes, or just one? Just the door prize. So thank you very much for that, Peter. So under one of your chairs, I know this is the most important, we've all eaten and we go upside down, right? In keeping with the theme of this year's event, the door prize is a bokashi bin that you can keep on your kitchen bench for all your food scraps to go and create fertilizer for your plants at home. I'll show you. Look under your chair for a Rotary Club of Melbourne sticker, and if you are that person, you go home with a bokashi bin. You may just tip your chair over backwards. Oh, we found it at table 15. Okay, thank you very much. Now, for those of you who did not win a prize, we have something for you too. Everybody goes home with a prize today. How many of you looked at what looked like matchbook covers on your table and you wondered, what on earth are matchbook covers? Nobody smokes anymore and nobody does wood-burning fires. I would invite you to open this up and look inside and see that they are seed sticks. They're little parsley seeds that you can plant either in a little pot on your kitchen bench or in your garden and help create that more sustainable at-home herb garden. So please take home as our gift a little packet of parsley seeds in order to enjoy memories of this event with you today. And for our panelists, we have gifts for you too. Yes, we do. And we will, I don't know what's the best way. If you want, if you come up at the end, I have gifts for you too as well from a sustainable charity in Nepal that is associated with the Rotary Club of Melbourne, which is fantastic. So I'd like to thank all of our special guests, all of our attendees here today. We especially thank our partners, the City of Melbourne, Sofitel, SecondBite, our corporate sponsors, Victorian Mortgage Group and Morgan Stanley, who have graciously supported us. And as we are a club, we want to create a relationship with many, many people and organizations in the City of Melbourne, and you're more than welcome to join us in our volunteer activities and maybe even become curious about joining Rotary at some point down the track. And towards that end, you are all most welcome to our evening meeting next week, so you can hear more about the carbon calculator featuring Gary Fowler, who spoke just ahead. And our next lunch, which will be held here at the Sofitel on the 15th of June, which is our Thomas Baker oration with Chief Scientist Dr. Kathy Foley, AOPSM. So that's a not-to-be-missed opportunity. So please join us. And as we say farewell, I'd like to ask you all to please be upstanding for the national anthem. Thank you, everybody. One more, while you're still standing, we do have a business card raffle, which I didn't have listed on my sheet, and a number of people tossed their business cards into the mix. And if I could ask this kind gentleman up front to pull a business card out so it's not mine. Great. So it's SAP Day, Project Management and Consultancy. You have won a prize. All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody, and hope to see you next time.